the mice performance in the maze is expected to deteriorate. Not only are we not seeing brain tumors developing, they're actually improving their performance in the maze.
Crazy.
All right, Chuck, thanks for joining me for the show.
Always a pleasure, Logan.
All right, we are going to get into what you're building, how you're helping advance science in the Alzheimer's Moonshot and Startup Health's Alzheimer's Moonshot, and the amazing work that you're going to do for so many people through NeuroEM Therapeutics. Why don't you start by just the elevator pitch, get us up to speed on what you're building and why it matters.
Sure. This was NeuroEM is a company that started more than a decade ago by a brilliant researcher who was trying to understand whether or not cell phone frequencies and energy transmitted through cell phone causes brain cancer, and what's the impact would be on Alzheimer's. And imagine the surprise when they found out that short bursts of energy at this particular frequency spectrum actually break down the toxic accumulations of things like tau and A beta and the oligomers that build around neuron and basically eventually kill the neuron and destroy cognition. And, they went through that. They did a couple of trials, mouse studies. Then they had an open trial with 8 people with the same results. And basically what we have right now is a technology that uses radio frequency, TEMT, transcranial electromagnetic stimulation technology using radio frequencies to actually do that. Reduces cognition, increases ATP production in the brain, and also importantly, rebalances cytokines, which reduces inflammation. And basically, we are now in the progress of taking our product to a commercial deployment.
Okay, so let's just make sure that I get this because there's a real story here. So somebody set out to prove that whether or not cell phones cause cancer, and what they actually found was some therapeutic benefit to the radio signals. So unpack that a little bit more. What were the studies like? What was that realization like?
Yeah. So the initial studies, they were using a basic signal transmitter in that same frequency and bombarding mice that are transgenic mice engineered with the Alzheimer's, trying to see what happens to their brains. And then, of course, brain studies and all the wet stuff, right? That happens in a research lab. And one of the researchers, and Dr. Ireland realized, wait, the mice performance in the maze is expected to deteriorate. Not only are we not seeing brain tumors developing, they're actually improving their performance in the maze.
Wow.
Which got everybody thinking, wait, what's going on here, right? It was exactly the opposite thing, which then led to more studies, more development, led some funding, led to a trial with an open study with 8 humans that were diagnosed with mild to moderate Alzheimer's. And basically the experience was very similar. Those patients within 4 to 6 weeks, they didn't slow the progression of the decline. It literally stopped it. And over the course of the next few weeks, reversed it. As a matter of fact, the longest person with tracking entered the program at 86, diagnosed with moderate Alzheimer's, scored somewhat in the 50% range of various cognition tests, right? Within 9 months, not only did she score in the high 80s, it kept moving. And I get goosebumps because her daughter sends us updates every month of how she's doing. Last month, she celebrated her combination, the birth of her first great grandchild and her 90th birthday. And we asked her to take a test for the last time because she's been taking them quarterly, a cognitive test. She scored in the high 90s or low 90s, in the low 90 percentage, which is normal for somebody 90 years old.
Wow.
So it's an amazing technology. We have the same experience with 4 other additional individuals that are part of our own internal study that we haven't published. It's definitely a real changer in this space.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, instead of there's some therapies that may slow the progression, you're actually talking about people getting better.
Correct. Wow. And no side effects.
No side effects.
And we know that because 70 years of the studies on the use of radio frequencies, including the US military, which uses a lot more power than cell phone powers for radio frequencies. We have a designation from an IRB that non-significant risk. Yeah, it is, and it's not a drug, and it's something that you wear once, twice a day for an hour for about 6 to 9 months. It's a slow progression of dissolving all the oligomers and the toxic tau and the accumulation and the amyloid, which, by the way, it doesn't matter who wins the debate, whether it's tau, the amyloid plaques, oligomers, or AB, doesn't matter. We actually dissolve all of those toxic accumulations and allow the brain to flush them at night through the lymphatic system. It's an amazing technology.
Yeah.
And it's not, and I acknowledge that because that was my reaction when I first got introduced 2.5 years ago. It sounds a little out there until you start looking at the research, the peer review research, the repetition of some of the labs by experiments by other labs. It's definitely amazing. That's a mission. Yeah. We want to bring this technology to market.
Okay. I want to hear more about that turning point for you professionally, finding this and kind of why you got on board. But you mentioned a second ago that you wear it twice a day. So tell us about the form factor. Obviously, when you were doing research, it was just about strapping radio signals to the brain, but now it's got to be something people can use.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because Amanda, chief product officer, says, yeah, it looks like it was designed by a bunch of researchers in a lab. It looks literally like a shower cap with antennas embedded into it with a electronics packs that hangs off the side. That's not going to be the final form factor, right, for going live. But that's literally what it was. It was a material, woven material where they sewed the antennas into it. And the antennas look like, think of it as a silver dollar thickness and size with a 1 millimeter, 10 little wire running out of it back to the control box. And it does look like a shower cap. I mean, we joke about that all the time. But the new implementation, obviously, now that we're getting into market, that's what we're working on. And Amanda is our chief product officer, and Trace is our technical guy, are working with our engineering team. We have a solid engineering team that's done products before to bring it into what we call a consumer friendly. Take even things like, hey, you know what? There's some people with big hair. How do you adjust for that? How do you not miss somebody's hair, right? I mean, obviously I don't have that problem, right? But those are the things that, how do you make it so a consumer looks at it, puts it on, and they don't have to worry about anything? What is the app that controls it look like? So we're doing all that as we speak.
Okay. So
and that's what we're raising money.
Yeah. So speaking of the team, thinking about you and your journey, this is not your first rodeo. You've been doing tech companies for a while. Give me just as highlights, just a couple of milestones that you feel like prepared you uniquely for this role.
Yeah. So I've been building technology solutions, complex systems for 3 decades. I mean, I've done things like lead the deployment of online government lotteries all over the US. I've built simulation programs that simulated the progression of cancer. I've built a risk management, advanced AI company that we sold to Dun & Bradstreet a couple of years ago. I was the CEO and a code developer with my CTO at the time that built an AI engine that did risk management. So I'm an advisor. I've been an advisor to Moffitt Cancer Center for the last decade, right? Looking at what they do for research. So I've been around building complex products in general, complex solution, complex technology. I have to admit, I never played with the wet stuff. Like, I'm sure if you put me in a lab with looking at somebody's actual brain, I don't know how I'm going to react. but it's part of the learning that I've done over the last 2.5 years. And the way it happened was I had just sold my company. I was trying to figure out what's the next thing I want to do. I'm of a certain age where legacy becomes important. And a VC friend of mine called me up and said, hey, you got to check out this company called NeuroEM. They have a technology that actually is going to treat Alzheimer's. And it was so fascinating that I've put in 2.5 years of my life into this so far.
Okay.
To get it to market, brought some awesome people on board that I trust and believe in their capabilities and the skill sets, and transition the company from the research focus to, we're getting a commercial technology to market.
Okay. Well, that brings us to today. That's sort of like how you got here. You're still working on the form factor in terms of how it's going to be, commercialized and brought to market. But tell us kind of exactly where you're at right now. Are you still doing validations? Do you have any major partnerships?
Yeah. So good question. So one of the things that was a gap in the initial research, there wasn't a control group, right? Even though the placebo effect in Alzheimer's studies is like it's less than a couple of percentage points, right? It's almost imperceptible. But in order to fix that, you need more data, right? You need more people. So because of the state of a device, the non-significant risk, all the things that we have, the designation by the FDA as a breakthrough device, we have been talking to clinical partners about helping us build a broader study. And then we actually have one. It's a great clinical organization. They have just a little bit over 1 million patients under management. Many of them are either memory care or they have, cognitive decline. It's an older population. And they literally came to us and said, hey, we want to partner with you. Our patients are willing to pay whatever to participate in a study.
Wow. How did they hear about you?
So it was interesting. I gave a presentation to an investor group, and one of their investors was in the meeting, heard my presentation, went to the CEO of this company, said, you got to go check these guys out. Yeah. They had their clinical director research what we did, read the information, read the white papers, and that got started. And then they went out and talked to some of their patients, and they said, look, it's an experimental device, right? We can't buy it, but if we did a study, would you help us fund it? And they got enough people that said yes, so which then led us to a discussion and an agreement to do continue our research. So we'll license the technology to them, and then they will pay. This way will recover. I mean, we're recovering our cost of the right? It's not a big profit making thing, but it allows us now to enroll. And it's funny, they want to enroll up to 1,000 people, which, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Art Swallow's like, okay, we got to manage the records of 1,000 clinical study participants, but we're going to start with 100.
Okay.
And then just go from there. Go ahead.
It really highlights an interesting challenge within health innovation, which is that, like what you're describing, is an absolute game changer for these folks. Low risk, extremely high potential reward. And yet you're still working in an environment where long sales cycles, selling anything is incredibly difficult, but you get to the right person who understands what you're doing. And they're like, of course, it's interesting divide.
It is. And think about it from our perspective, it does a couple of things, right? It's our first large scale deployment. It's not the 8 people in the clinical trial and the 5 people that were doing internally monitoring. It's large scale. And it's not a clinical trial setting. It's real life people, right? These people are willing to participate because they understand that. Yeah. It gives us a lot of data, real life data from real life users, not a controlled clinical trial. Because, they're going to break it. They're going to get it wet. They're going to step on it. Somebody's going to forget all the things that you're going to get to see that you don't get to see in a clinical trial that is really controlled. Plus, they're going to give us data about the cognitive impact they have. And then it gives us more ammunition for the commercialization, right? Because now all of a sudden, and even the FDA is willing to accept market data, right? Large population data when a control group is not necessarily easily available. So yeah, it's a strong case for more partnerships, more research. And if you think about it from the investors, they're like, oh, okay, now we know there's people willing to pay for this.
They de-risk
even though it's experimental, even though they know the license they use, they don't actually get to own it. It's a revenue channel, market validation. It is really good. And let's not forget the mission of this company, right? Bring treatments to Alzheimer's to market. So from the world of the Alzheimer's market, it's the first time we have a non-invasive wearable device that is used in real dementia care environments, and it's used at scale. Real data, right? To me, it's it's critical and might actually get more people over the doubts that they have about energy. Because, let's face it, I mean, energy can be associated with poo-poo, just not necessarily hard science, right? So when we say energy, people can understand there's hard science, radio frequency, energy, bioelectronics, and alternatives to drug therapies.
That's part of the reason why understanding your and your team's expertise is important here in this story, to really understand the kind of foundations you're laying. Let's talk timelines. One of the challenges with health tech and the interviews that I do is that sometimes someone says, check back in 10 years, it was a long process. So if everything goes as planned, how would you like to see this validation study go? And what are your thoughts about coming to market?
Yeah, we need a little bit of money, obviously, to push that because, you need some infrastructure. But the good news is, with our upcoming round the first closing this week, next week, we got past that. We needed a legitimate science-based organization to do that, which the partnership that we have with, and then I apologize, I can't use that name yet until it's officially released. But the partnership we have is clear. So the timing that we're working on right now, and in parallel to that, we're obviously continuing our own device development process, right? Make the device more consumer friendly and so on and so forth. We expect that we'll have, based on the initial reaction they got, probably about 100 people wearing a device in the next 6 months. And then we'll start collecting data. And then usually within 4 to 5 months, we now have meaningful data. So even if they have 50 people using the device, we'll have meaningful data in the next, I would say, 9 months, right? In parallel to that, we are now doing all the DFM, the design for manufacturing work that needs to be done, right? Miniaturize the device, reduce the power consumption, do all the things that you need to do to make a consumer device. That process will be done with probably by the next 18 months. And because it's already underway, we already got the engineering done. It's just about industrial design right now in DFM. So that's going to happen. We should have a wellness device to market in the next 18 months, which always, gets people to say, what are you going to do? So one of the things, because we're a breakthrough designation, there's non-significant risk. There's a good strategy that says we can do a dual path. We can continue the research and the FDA trials. That will take us about 3 years based on even the reasonable assessment, 3 years before we can get a full clinical designation, and then another year to get a device to market. So I won't get device out there for brain health and consumers. Or we can do dual paths and have a version of a device geared towards the consumer that wants to improve brain health in general, right? Their wellness. And we'll have that device in the next 18 months and we'll have it in market. As a matter of fact, the FDA process is pretty clear. We started that 513G process. So as long as you stay within the lanes that they ascribe to you about the claims you make and things like that, you can actually be in market. So we'll have a device in market in the next 18 months where in parallel, we'll continue the development of the clinical device.
As a wellness device, do you see it still only going towards folks with moderate Alzheimer's conditions, MCI, or could someone like myself just wear it to, improve my brain health?
We're actually not even going to market it to the Alzheimer's people.
Okay.
So anybody who's got a clinical diagnosis.
Okay, it's more brain health in general.
Yeah, this is marketed as a brain health device, and we get There was a tech show here in Tampa last week, and literally we could have sold 100 of those things to people saying, "Oh, brain health, ATP production, inflammation. I'm interested. Can I buy one?" It's like, no, we can't sell you one yet. Okay. So it's that's the target. And then obviously we're a science-based organization, right? We're all engineers. We joke that every single one of our management team, including our board directors, we're all nerds. We're all engineers, scientists. So we're very careful about the science side of what we do.
So you mentioned that to get to this stage, you had to initiate another round of funding. By the time we publish this, you will have closed that. So maybe you could comment on something we talk about a lot at Startup Health is having mission-aligned investors. What are you excited about in terms of this round of funding, in terms of the partners that have brought into your team?
Yeah, what's interesting was we had a lot of people that had interest, but it's not just the mission. They actually have to have at least some understanding of the technology, right? Because we've had a lot of people that we thought, oh, well, this person will immediately get the impact and the significance of it. But then they get their financial advisors that are usually lawyers and accountants, and they don't understand this stuff. We just got lucky because our lead investor, the managing director, was responsible for RF products at Lenovo, spent time in China making RF products and technology, then went to work for Dyson, making products, including some of the health tech products that are in the market, then went into VC. I mean, he immediately understood what we're doing. And their advisors is a neurologist, a neurologist, and a neuroscience doctor, and a brain surgeon. So it's like they just had all the right pieces, and they got it. And once they got it, of course, they did 5 months of due diligence.
Yeah,
it's like any good investor should do, right? If they're going to lead around. And that was very important. And then we have discussions. Now that we get past that, we actually now have discussions with a national health organization outside the US that they want to do a clinical trial. The reason their team that invests in early stage startups reached out to us, and they have people on their team that understand what we do. So it goes beyond just that. So it's mission aligned at the organizational level, at the investor level, but also knowledge, right? So there's a lot of exciting things going on.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of the importance of having people along the journey who know what you're doing, you're part of the Startup Health Alzheimer's Moonshot. Why is it important? Maybe you could comment on why it's important to come together as a community of founders who really understand the unique challenges of a specific health moonshot mission like Alzheimer's.
Yeah, it's interesting because people ask me, why? I mean, you've built a dozen companies. Why are you signing up for an accelerator? I'm like, every industry is different. Yeah, sure. I've been on some of the calls where some of the younger founders ask me for advice on how to be a founder. But I've also been on the same calls where people are talking about wet stuff. And I'm a simple engineer, right? Just because I know how to build companies, I need other people that understand that. Or sometimes we get a challenge with something, and even my science team would say, whoa, there's 17 ways to answer this. And then I'll reach out to the community and say, hey, how do you guys answer a question like that? Because we can answer it 17 different ways. What's the most efficient way to do it? And the connections, right? I mean, we've connected with companies, for example, that are part of the Moonshot and have a diagnostic device. And they're like, yeah, we got a diagnostic device. But, if we tell somebody tomorrow they got 60% chance of developing Alzheimer's in the next 5 years, wouldn't it be nice if we say, oh, by the way, here, there's a device you can use that will help you. So it's been extremely, extremely valuable to participate in that community.
Nice. Last question. What are you most excited about for the next, let's say, 6 months? Like what's coming? What should we be looking out for?
It is the announcements of our funding round. It is the official announcement of the partnership with the medical organization. It is and it's the starting of the results coming in. To me, that is not a real world validation of people really getting the benefit, right? So.
Yeah. You mentioned the idea. Okay, I lied. Actual last question. You mentioned the idea of legacy. How do you want people to be thinking about NeuroEM and this work 5 years from now?
That we took a brilliant research idea and made a real world life-changing product and got it to market. That's the legacy, right? I don't need any credit for anything other than that. So and neither does the rest of my team. Our goal is to get this thing to market, help people that happen. So
I love it. Chuck, it's exciting. It's just amazing to think about a non-invasive, low-risk tool like this that has already shown such interesting results. I love the non-intuitive story. You were looking for one thing and then it almost like makes the results feel more true because it wasn't what you were looking for, right? Versus the bias that comes with searching for a certain thing. And here you are pulling all of your experience together to make this happen. Very exciting, Chuck. Love the team that you've brought together, and it's going to be exciting to watch you over the next 6 months, 12 months. I'll be the first one to sign up when the wellness device is ready.
You got it, my friend. Thank you for the time, as usual.
All right. Take care and be well.
You got it.
Now, before we get into that, a quick word about this show, in case you're new around here. At Startup Health, we believe in broadcasting the stories of Health Moonshot progress, the stories of the most forward-thinking entrepreneurs in health. If you want more of this good news about healthcare's problem solvers, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, hit that notification button, and follow us on social media at Startup Health.